literature has proposed, please just respond to that. Because that is the substance of this topic,
No,
not
it doesn't.
the ad hominems, not
About it.
the weird...
Making it confusing because pretend that
It's like cutting
He's
out.
clipping. He's clipping like crazy.
Yeah, I know.
what was the point?
You
of
need
the-
to wait. You're clipping your mic. You need
Zara,
to, like...
I think it's because of you, Zara.
Oh, I
maybe.
know. I'm still gonna have loud.
Oh, you're doing it on purpose? Okay.
What point of this exercise? I wanted to talk about world systems theory.
Okay, let's do it.
I had no interest in whatever your friend had to make up about it.
I'm not here to make anything up. I'm here to strictly engage on the terms that you provide me. If you provide me terms, I will engage them. If you don't provide me terms, I'll provide my own.
You didn't understand any of the passages that I read to you. You repeated the same 4 times. Zara,
So why don't you enlighten us, Synd? Why don't you enlighten us? What do those terms mean?
The core.
Or did he just switch out semi and what was it, sub?
Yeah, I think that was
Is that the only linguistic mistake he made?
That wasn't that, Zara. He wasn't even aware of the terms and said that they were jargon. Zara, that's like saying...
that's not what jargon means. Okay. Do you know what jargon means? Do I need to define the word jargon? Jargon does not mean term
the jargon of jargon.
Known. It just means term has to be equivocated with something more common space. So jargon is specific. Common space language is generally acceptable. So when I talk about how a developed country interacts with a developing country, or a trade country interacts with a non-trading country, then those are almost entirely applicable under the framework we're talking about. I just want to ask you a question. Please answer it. It's just going to be, do you think that, in all honesty, there are periphery countries which do not operate within the limits of their core country limits?
What does that even mean? That has nothing to do with...
I got it.
What is a core country limit? What does that mean,
a core country
You're
limit.
making stuff
Let's
up.
talk about core country
You're
limit.
making stuff up.
Well, is he making stuff up,
luckily,
or
that's
do you
how
not
science
understand what
works.
it means?
We make things up.
Making stuff up, Zara. He doesn't know what he's talking about. None of this is referenced in world systems theory. None of it. He hasn't read a single paper about it. Not a single paper. You've been lying.
Oh my God, he hasn't read a paper. Motherfucker, read your paper first, okay? You just sat here and read a summary to us for the first goddamn hour and a half of this discussion that you had not even read the actual paper to. You sat there and said, oh, I misread the summary, and then read 16 pages worth of 16 pages, for Christ's sake, and told me, okay, this is my new perspective. You want to know what I did? I didn't sit here and say, fuck you, you didn't understand the summary in the first place. I said, fine, I'd love to have this discussion. Let's talk about what you know now. But now that you've sat here and read the paper, you're just sitting here saying, you don't know what you're talking about. You haven't even read it.
How dare you? You did what I did earlier in this conversation.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, for Christ's sake, just talk with me about what you want to talk about, not just about what you think we are getting in the way of. If we can talk about what you want to talk about, I've been an incredibly adaptive person, okay? I will literally talk about the most stupid shit in the world. I will fight anyone over anything. I don't give a fuck. I'm the most dishonest person. I'll admit it all. You ready for this? I agree. I don't know shit. I'm an idiot. I'm born on this planet with a fucking monkey brain, and I'm working it out. However, I think I've worked out enough to be able to get past where you are. So unless you want to propose a position where you are instead of where I am, then I can never do that. So if you want to propose a position, I'm happy to refute it. But until you do that, I'm stuck sitting here with, you didn't understand what this word meant. You didn't understand what this word meant. Okay, now I do. So what are you going to do about it?
Wrong. You've made up the terminology. The fitting within, that is completely made up. That means nothing. Zara, the part of the summary that was inaccurate was not a summary of world systems theory. It was a summary of 2 assumptions that it made. 1, the emphasis on the inevitability of capitalism, which makes more sense once you read it more in depth, and the emphasis on the of globalization. Now, once
You're gonna have to repeat that. I didn't understand.
Now, once we got the paper and we read it more, it was clear that the summary was a poor one. And to be clear, this is a summary of the critique.
So what is he wrong about? Is what I don't understand.
So you don't understand? Okay, I'll explain it to you right now. I'll read it for you word for word. I'll pull up the summary and I'll pull up the paper to explain to you how they relate to each other. Because you numbskulls are too stupid to just ask. You're going to play this twisted game and think that you know what you're talking about.
You guys didn't read the paper mid conversation either.
Well, I actually conversation. You didn't. You just pretended to know what you were talking about.
I didn't pretend to know it. My entire role in this discussion has been explaining to you what wrong means. I made no claims about what world system is. I've just said what he's saying it is.
Why should I
And this
care?
entire time, my defense of world
Up,
systems
Zara.
has just been that there are larger economies
Why,
determining
Zara?
the role of other economies.
I don't need to answer. I don't need to answer that question. It's up to you to decide whether you do or don't care about what he's saying. I'm merely telling you what he's saying. That's all.
What
That's
he's
been my
saying
only role. It's been my only role. That's the only role I care to fulfill.
Zara.
And honestly, my role isn't even to
You
like.
repeated the same thing 4 times. I had no idea why you brought up the time. I thought that he was a bit off, like in the head, but I wanted to be polite. The point about things in time, the fact that the past
I am an ape.
influences
the past. Like I said,
completely made up, Zara. Of course, you're going to confuse me.
Again, not what I was saying.
Lying to me about something like that. I don't know
lying
why.
to you about what about the past?
Wait.
The
Let's have a quick
The
review.
fuck?
Okay, of what I've talked about. All right, what I've talked about
He
includes
said the past
the
causes
idea.
the present. That's literally
No, not even that. That was just the idea in explaining a counterfactual. Like the very basis of what a counterfactual is was that discussion. What I was getting at this entire time was that there is a type of relationship that exists. A relationship between economies that means that you cannot have an economy which is not determined by another one. If you want to say, oh, well, what are those two sides of the relationship? Sure, you can call them a fucking core and periphery if you want to. You can call them an imperial and a colonial. You can call them whatever the fuck. I do not care. Just engage with the fact that there are not.
Okay. Wrong. To understand, and don't you dare interrupt me, Zara. I swear. Wrong, I swear. Let me finish. You can talk when I am.
Just make your fucking point. Hurry up.
The points you're making about the jargon not mattering are idiotic. Because that's like talking about Kant and calling imperative jargon in the mid-conversation while pretending that you know what you're talking about to the other person.
Oh, that's weird because most of the people I discussed with Kant have not read source Kant, and they're working on their definitions in relation to the concepts that those ideas describe. So if I describe to someone, okay, let's talk about transcendental synthetic a priori truths. That person is going to be confused as fuck, but they'll get an idea based on the context of the ideas we're talking about. So if I say, what is an apple versus what is a tree? Someone through a discussion about that idea can come to the conclusion of what those words mean, and in the entirety of that conversation could have been having an entirely valid discussion over whether or not those transcendental synthetic a priori truths actually exist. So what I want to get at is not whether or not what I defined as whatever the fuck was valid. I want to talk about the ideas and the relationships which I described. If you at any point are willing to sit with me and talk about those relationships, then I'm happy to. Can you please just talk with me about the relationship between core economies and between periphery economies?
Core economies determine the political, social, and economic conditions of the periphery. Now, the study we were talking about emphasizes the fact that this is not necessarily the case for everything. There are still aspects of the periphery economies that are independent from the international, from the world system, from the core. Now, I have a question. Is the reason why you do this is because you don't think that I know what I'm talking about?
You don't know what you're talking about.
My job is to show that no one knows what like. Do you think I know what I'm talking about? Anyone who thinks that they walk into a discussion with certainty is a fucking idiot. Okay,
Zara, Did you not read
And
the
that's
paper?
similar.
You do realize that I knew about the world system, right? You do realize that the summary was not about the world system. The summary was about the critique of the world system theory. You
Which
do
includes
Yeah,
a summarization, but yeah.
I know.
Okay. Why don't you think I know what I'm talking about? And why do you
Because
think
you had to read the paper mid-conversation.
the paper was not about the world system theory, Czar?
I'm aware.
The paper was about a critique, a study about it.
But the paper makes claims about the world system.
Yes, and I was reading them out loud. I read sections of the paper to
Right.
you.
So if you start for instance, right? Like if I make a claim, like if I say, I mean, you thought their criticisms were correct, right? You weren't I presume you weren't just saying them for some other reason, right? What you were saying was the world system is flawed. Here's a paper here's a paper that like speaks on its flaws, right?
That was one of them. One of the critiques.
Okay. That's all I need. It
Here's
doesn't.
another, Czar.
No, wait. Let me finish my point.
No,
Because,
there's nothing that you're doing.
yeah, it doesn't matter. I just need to. I can just say
Wrong
this
with
one.
say things that are
If you are citing a paper, right, and the paper makes claims about the world system in the summary, and you're making those claims, and then you or at least you're interpreting those claims that summary in one way, and as attacking the world system in some way, and then you roll those claims back because you read the rest of the paper. It signifies that you don't understand the world system. If you understood the world system, you would have read the summary and then have and it, with your interpretation, and then would have scratched your head and say, "Oh well, no, this is clearly wrong. That isn't what the world system is." You would be able to do that immediately, but you didn't, and that signifies that you don't understand the world system.
Actually, no. Here's why. One, the summary is not links the study. You're confusing the abstract of the study that I linked with the summary that just.
I guess I am. Which one did you read?
Here's the difference.
Which one did you read?
Which one? I will post them
wait.
both in voice to explain to you what happened. And I'm also going to explain why I agreed with things that didn't seem to make sense at the time, because they were true, though I didn't know why wrong, being an idiot, was bringing them up because it had nothing to do with the system. I'm going to explain right now. I'm going to post 2 links. You guys better open both of them and read them right now.
That's a lot of work.
What?
Well, I just want to know.
No, here it is. I swear.
You read. Wait, no.
What the problem is, Zara?
I want to wait. So I did confuse the summary and the abstract. Was it the abstract that you initially read, or was it the summary? I'm guessing it's the abstract.
It was the summary that I initially read. I said, okay, I got to find the study. The thing that I
so if you read the summary, my point stands. I'll just say with the summary. If you read the summary, but you don't. You agree with the summary, right? And that's that you're putting stock in its argument against the world system, and then you read the rest of some paper, but it turns out, oh, that summary is actually, or at least my interpretation of the summary was wrong. That is not what the world system is saying. It's actually this that the world system is saying. It's wrong for these reasons. Then that signifies that you did not understand the world system prior.
That's where you weren't. Here's where the distinction was that didn't make sense, that wasn't clear in the summary, not the abstract or the main paper. Here's where it was. You numbskulls clearly weren't listening. Here's where the mistake was. So, summary. Let me find it. 1 second. I didn't have it pulled up on a tab. The summary is right here. I'm about to post it. I'm going to explain to you the differences.
Enlighten us. But I think my point stands.
No, it doesn't. We are not done.
Is you ordered the food?
I'm ready to hang up the coat.
Facts.
I'm ready to retire.
No, I'm trying
Yeah,
to get.
here, wait. No,
Nora,
I think that this is what I might call an arbitrary discussion. Okay, this is something that is over a
You
level.
guys,
It's just
All
like
right. I'm telling you that you made a mistake, actually.
I'm waiting.
Everyone makes mistakes. Have you not heard that song? It's a great song. I'm pretty
Not
sure.
Willow.
I actually don't know who
Willow
it's by.
hasn't made a mistake in 6 years.
Well, actually, I don't make
Correct.
mistakes. Actually, God put me on here with perfect knowledge. But anyway, what I'm trying to get at, why are we having a discussion about the grounds of a discussion rather
It's all
than
right.
just having it with
Look, if we're gonna go meta, we can't then go meta and then meta. Like we
Well, that's
gotta
kind of my job.
we gotta stick on like one layer here.
Okay, so what I'm gonna go with is trying
Here's
to
the
say
summary right here.
that
I'm posting it right
let's. I don't even need the summary. At
Zara,
this point.
wait. I'm trying to explain it.
Hurry up.
Yes, I am.
Go. What? Why am I wrong? Go ahead. Make the point.
Yes, right here. I'm posting it so you can see it, so you can read it. Read it.
Just read
Open
the relevant
Yeah.
part.
Open.
I'm doing something right now as I'm talking, so I can't really do that.
Here is the summary. This is not the abstract. I'm going to read it out loud to you. The
Sure,
world
then.
2. Here's the critique 2. Overemphasizing the role of globalization and capitalism. The world systems theory, in putting forward the notion of a unified world connected by networks of global capital, makes two assumptions that do not always hold true. One of globalization and the other of the inevitability of capitalism. For instance, Balkulik 2018 has shown how local dynamics in the coffee plantations of the Caribbean developed independently of any global influences. Similarly, several countries, such as Bhutan, still remain outside the purview of the global capitalist system. Now, notice the details that are missing here that are in, I swear, open it right now, that are in the paper, including the abstract. Nowhere in here does it specify that the labor patterns are the ones that are largely
Please. Yeah.
Look,
So the thing is that
try to
like we talked
understand it
about
before
this.
talking to me. Try to listen.
Hey,
Listen.
dog, take a breath for Christ's sake.
No,
We
you
are talking-
idiots. You are the ones who don't understand this.
Oh no! Oh no!
Anyway.
Listen, dog, you gotta take a fucking breath.
Anyway.
Like you're screaming at the top of your lungs, like you have a goddamn like mental like breakdown at this moment. Okay, so I know what you're saying. You're saying we're not talking about labor. We're not talking about all these. We're just talking about whether or not there was an independent, non-core relationship-based development in the Caribbean.
No, you're wrong. Keep your eyes on this thing. When I give you permission to go to the abstract, go there. Do not deviate. I'm trying to explain to you where you guys thought that I misunderstood when it was clear there was no information. So
I never said you misunderstood.
This right here just says local dynamics in the coffee plantations, developed independently of any global influences. 1. This is a summary. This is not the paper.
So what I just said?
The correspondence between the global influences described in this very bad summary, you don't know that after looking at the abstract, that the global
right now
are the core necessities, the core countries. And those, perfect. None of that is mentioned. Are you listening?
Yeah, I'm also doing drugs. Don't mind me.
Mute your mic then.
Stop that.
If you're gonna do drugs, don't let me hear it, okay?
Why not? It's so
Wait,
much more fun.
What drugs are you doing?
Weed, come on.
What do you mean? Come on, dude. No fucking of the few interactions I've had with
Mark is wrong is a heroin addict.
Listen, I was honestly tripping acid and doing other shit recently. So.
Anyway, now let's go back to the two assumptions and see how they correspond to the abstract here. The one of globalization and the other of the inevitability of capitalism. Now, that's a bit harder to find once you go to the paper. It seems that what they're talking about here in the paper is where's the paragraph? What's the format analysis? Just 1 second. I'm going to find it.
Not bad.
I am curious though, like uh um wrong, like the way you were using the terms when I asked Trader what those terms meant. He described pretty much what you described. And
Well, because
he said he was reading. He said he was reading up on world systems. He wasn't just relaying what you were saying.
well, no, here's the thing. I wasn't using the direct terms used within literature until he said it, in which I realized everything I've been saying is applicable within those terms. So if you want to talk about core and periphery, if you want to talk about things like sugar trade, you want to talk about how those are dependent on a core economic system, a world system, which was based in, I don't know, transatlantic slave trade, that was regulated by a single economic entity. That economic entity, which gave way to the axis of Caribbean development, meaning that the periphery would have been reliant on another core economic system. The
Okay.
same way that the US was at the time a periphery. The US was not core yet. The
Here's
US becomes core within things like post World War II or World War One, where we begin to have the biggest influx of capital, foreign, in terms of global investment. Like there are plenty of reasons I could explain the exact same discussion we've had in terms that he would be happy with.
okay. I have the place. Here's the correspondence. So the one of globalization here, the summary, it appears to correspond to what is described in the paper as the core necessities of the world system. That is, the necessities of the core. There's the various political, social, and economic factors in the
You gotta slow down a little bit.
and the one on the inevitability of
No. Don't keep going. I mean, repeat what you said and then slow down.
the assumption one of globalization, that seems to correspond to the necessities of the core countries that are described in this paper. Do you have the paper open? Do you have that paper open? Because if you don't have it,
Wait, doesn't it talk about like also just core economic
you have
institutions?
the paper in front of your face wrong.
I'm on my phone, dog. All right, I need a little bit of help. Okay, I'm willing to
You
admit
have
it.
open on your phone?
I can't really
Yes
do that.
or no? Do you have the paper in front of your face? I'm trying to direct you.
He answered
It's
that
not
question.
technologically capable. If you are willing to help me, like I'm willing. I'm literally asking you to do the like.
Yeah,
Like this would favor you in most situations, right?
you gotta you have to read a little bit into someone's words. If they say, "Can you please read it for me? I'm on my phone," they mean no. They mean no. They can't pull it up in front of them. They don't have it up in front of
You
them.
have
That's
it in
why
front.
they're asking for help.
Can you pull it up? Can you
What?
pull it?
Who?
Pull up the paper?
Who?
Do I have to post it? You, Zara. Will
What?
you?
No, I'm doing other stuff right now. I'm not gonna do that.
Wait a second. So you're trying to understand the difference between the two papers without looking at the papers. And then you come whining to me.
That's not what I was doing. No, I was saying why you didn't understand those papers because, or you didn't understand the world. You didn't
You,
understand the world system, and you didn't understand those papers. You initially had a bad reading of the summary, and you were trying to defend that bad reading,
know
which
that
already signifies you don't understand world systems. And then you read the rest of the paper, and said to us, "Oh, my reading of the summary was a poor one." That's the both of those things.
not have
Both of those things suggest that you don't understand those things. I don't need to have read the paper
you need you
to
do
have
need
that suggested to
to
me. No, I
understand
don't.
the fact that
No,
the
I don't.
bad
No, I don't.
that yes you do.
If someone tells me, hey, so yeah, Donald Trump got shot the other day. I don't know. Let's say I don't know. I don't
Oh,
read up on current events at all, and they
you
say, "Oh no, actually, I just misread, what the paper said.
that,
He didn't get shot by a gun. He got like an injection from a needle to like a COVID vaccine." Then that person didn't understand what they were reading. I don't need to. I don't need to have read it to know
Yeah.
that.
Just a heads up. This is going nowhere. I'm a dip.
Yeah. No worries. I completely understand.
Yeah. God bless everybody.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like,
I hope you don't go mentally insane.
Zara, pull up the papers. You need
uh,
to.
I'm not gonna do that.
Why not? Stackhouse. Anybody, please pull up the papers on your computer so I can show
just-
somebody what I'm talking about.
You can just quote it, my guy.
You don't listen to it. You
I
don't
do.
listen to my quotes. You don't listen to a word I say.
Yeah, I do. That's how I'm refuting you right now.
You're not refuting me. You're wrong. Think you know.
We'll prove it. Read the paper.
Don't say a word. Here's the paper. Do you have the first paper? Stackhouse, somebody. Will somebody please just open it?
Synd, I have the paper open right now. I'm
Good.
ready.
Keep it open.
Okay.
I swear. Keep the paper open. Hit download citation. Which one do you have open, Stackhouse? Do you have the big one, the article?
I'll open the one you just sent.
PDF or EPUB? Which is it?
I'll download the PDF. Okay. Downloading. Opening it. Okay, it's open.
Okay. Have it open. Can you see the entire paper? Can you stream this, by the way, Stackhouse? Please stream it so everyone can see, please.
Okay, sure thing. Let's see.
Thank you. Okay. Now, here's the second summary.
Oh fuck! I gotta go soon. At 7 o'clock, I'm dipping.
Oh, no, you don't.
Yeah, I do. I got a fucking midterm.
You are the one who does not understand. What went wrong?
I don't care. You got 20 minutes to make your case. Otherwise, I'm dipping.
Okay, that'll be enough. Listen,
Okay, 7
don't.
o'clock.
Ridiculous that you do this, and then think you have, and then have the gall to say without the paper in front of your face, without listening, to then say that.
Yeah, I reject that. I need the paper in front of my face to judge that you did not understand the paper.
Yeah,
I need that. I reject that premise.
because you're an idiot. Got it. Okay, Stackhouse. Here's
You're
the
gonna,
second.
you're gonna have to defend that.
I will defend it. Stackhouse, here's the second thing. I posted it in voice right now. Are you able to put this on stream next to the paper so everybody can look at it? Are you able to do that, Stack?
It's not side by side, but I have it in another tab that I can switch to.
Okay, so can everybody see the paper? Can everybody see it on stream? Like, can everybody see both papers?
I'm not looking at that. I already told you.
Okay, thank you. Stackhouse, go to the smaller paper, which is the summary, please.
Yep, sure.
Everybody, look closely. This is the summary. The world systems theory, in putting forward the notion of a unified world connected by networks of global capital, makes two assumptions that do not always hold true. Stackhouse, I want you to highlight these. One of globalization, highlight that phrase.
I can't. It's a
That
picture.
do not always hold true. Key word there, always.
It's an image. I can't highlight it.
That do not always hold true. One of globalization and the other of the inevitability of capitalism. For instance, I think you can read this. Balkulik has shown how local dynamics in the coffee plantations, notice local dynamics. It doesn't specify the labor patterns like the abstract does, like the paper does. Because this is a summary from a different site. And the coffee plantations of the Caribbean developed independently of any global influences. Now, that corresponds to the necessities described in the abstract, which I will highlight in the paper. Similarly, several countries such as Busan still remain. That sentence has nothing to do with the paper. Okay, now, did everybody see that wording? Will everybody remember the wording? Because now I'm going to relate it to where it is in the paper and why it was a bit confusing, especially when I have two numbskulls making things up without my knowing that they're making
I
it
didn't
up.
make anything up.
Shut up.
I didn't.
Anyway. Well, you were pretending that actually you were, because you were pretending that you knew what he was talking about.
I knew what he was talking about. Yeah, because I had the terms defined to me by him and by Trader. So I asked him to specifically define those terms, and then I had them defined for me. So
Okay,
I did know what you're talking about. That's why I was relaying it to you.
Now, Stackhouse, do you have the
Oh,
PDF?
you're just gonna okay, pass over that. I'll take that. I'll take that silent consent.
Do you have the PDF open right now?
Yep. Streaming.
Oh. So let me show you guys how it was a bit difficult to see how they related. Let's look for the first thing, one of globalization. Let's find what that assumption is in here. Now, it appears to be, when it's discussing it, it's in Stackhouse. I'll tell you the paragraph. I'm looking for it on my computer. Sorry, I'm a bit slow. Like, this is just irritating.
Yep.
Read the sentence out loud, and I'm going to keep repeating it until you can find it.
I can just search it. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. I will let you know when I find it to read it out loud.
Yep.
What are we doing right now?
I'm showing you how the summary corresponds to the paper. Trying to find it.
Wait, what do you mean you're trying to find the summary? I thought you already had the summary.
I do. I have the paper. Just stop in voice knowing me to know it. All right.
I don't even know. Like, I don't even know why.
Okay, here's how they correspond. This paragraph right here.
Wait, Stack, you are recording?
Yeah.
Yeah. Here is the paragraph.
Thank God, right? Okay.
Thank God. Our saving grace.
Hey, Zar, can you be quiet? Synd is talking. Okay, so
In a similar vein, in this paper, I will criticize the world system theory by arguing that the labor strategy
I got it.
which were implemented in the Caribbean sugar plantations in the 17th and 18th centuries, and everyone listen to me and read along with me, please. In 18th centuries, and coffee plantations in Chiapas in the 19th century developed by the local conditions rather than necessities of world system. Furthermore, I will argue that the workers in the plantations were active agents rather than passive victims of the production processes. Now, if you go back to that tiny little summary, all that's stated there is the local dynamics. But in this paper, what it corresponds to, these local conditions are the workers in the plantations being able to be active agents or passive agents. And and in these examples, for example, in one of my highlighted in a similar vein, yeah. Now, did everybody read along that paragraph with me? Stackhouse, is that still open?
Yep.
Okay, go back to the tiny little paper thing, please.
Yep.
Sorry, S. Okay. So, look at the last sentence of the paper. The two assumptions, one of globalization and the other the inevitability of capitalism. Notice the last sentence at the end of this first paragraph in the introduction. I'll argue that the workers in the plantations were active agents rather than passive victims of the production processes. That is roughly what the inevitability of capitalism assumption is. The inevitability is that the core countries will influence politically, socially, and economically the periphery. Stackhouse, pull up the Wikipedia page of World System 2 to give it additional aid as well. Look up World System Theory.
Can't type. Okay. I'm like Joe Rogan's assistant. Okay, I have it.
Good. Now, Go back to the tiny paper, please, for the second assumption, so I can show everyone what that one is. The one of globalism, the local dynamics now. Throughout here, let me go to the highlighted portions. I do have one. Here's an example of the local dynamics going against. Is everyone following along so far? Does everyone understand? Did everyone understand that portion?
Let me hear my mic. Repeat it. Repeat it.
You weren't listening. Okay, let's go back. Let's go back for Zara.
Oh, you're cutting out for me.
Stackhouse, let's go back for Zara. He didn't hear it.
God, this Zara guy's so fucking slow. Okay, let's do it.
Yeah, and then he has the gall to tell me that I don't understand what it is when he doesn't even have the paper in front of his face.
Jesus.
So, go back to the abstract. So, wait, no. Go to the last...
You literally said you didn't understand it. Like, you're the one who said, oh, I read this wrong. This summary did not mean what I thought it meant.
Stackhouse, do you notice how the descriptions in this summary vaguely correspond to the...
It doesn't matter whose fault it is. It doesn't matter whether it's you're bad at interpreting or the summary was written poorly. Either way, you didn't understand what it was trying to say. I don't need to have read. I don't need to have read it to know that. I'm just taking your words.
Zara, how in the summary it's a lot more concise and there are less details. For example, when it says local dynamics here,
again, you're shifting the blame off of you. I'm not saying it's whether it's your fault or not. I'm just saying my claim is not that it's your fault or not your fault. My claim is just that you didn't understand, and you didn't.
And it, but once we got to the abstract, it was hard to relate what they were in there because instead of saying dynamics in the abstract, it talks about the various labor conditions. It talks about the fact that here, let me pull up this section for.
Hello?
Yes, I'm finding a good one so you can understand because you're not reading it.
Yeah, I mean, you said you didn't understand it. Why do I have to read it if you said you didn't understand it?
Because what I said I didn't understand was how to relate them to each other. I understood the summary. Stackhouse, to be clear, do you understand what the problem is a little bit since you're seeing it? Do you understand how the summary is a lot more concise than the actual paper?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
The summary is more concise than what it's summarizing. Who would have thought?
Seems by definition.
This is what
the more you know.
They use different words to describe what is described in several paragraphs in different sections here. Here's an example of local dynamics when they're talking about the fact that local dynamics also shapes the production of cotton and sugar. Here's an example. Reading out loud. Stackhouse, please.
Yeah. So what part of all this am I incorrect about?
Please go to the paper.
Stackhouse. Sure.
Listen. Zara, just listen.
Okay.
All right, I'm reading it out right now, Stackhouse.
Okay, I'll find it.
Despite all strict supervisions on them, the slaves in the Caribbean had two options to abandon their miserable condition in the plantations: running away or rebel. According to one prominent historian on the sugar plantations, Philip D. Curtin, the slaves could defend a small territorial enclave against the Europeans' effort at conquest of re-enslavement. Zara, do you remember this section?
But is this like Kanye West saying like the slaves didn't have to be slaves; they could have rebelled? Is that what it's saying?
Open the paper. Read the paper.
Well, I'm asking you. You're the one saying it.
Stream. Watch the stream. Read what I am saying out loud. Quit complaining and asking me to repeat what I'm saying. Complaining how you don't understand it.
I'm clarifying.
Are your eyes?
Okay. Despite all strict supervisions on them, the slaves in the Caribbean had two options to abandon their miserable condition in the plantations: running away or rebel. According to one prominent historian on the sugar plantations, Philip D. Curtin, the slaves could defend a small territorial enclave against the Europeans' effort at conquest and re-enslavement. these independent Africans could build some kind of colonies and begin to be called as Maroons in Caribbean. Indeed, these colonies had existed before the English occupation of the Caribbean islands. On the other hand, Maroons continued to exist under the British colonial regime in Caribbean. Okay, that's interesting. For example, after the British forces invaded Jamaica in 1655, the Jamaican colonial government let them alone at first, but in the early 18th century, the government organized some military expeditions against the Maroon colonies with varying success. Eventually, the government recognized their rights on the certain pieces of land. Okay,
Yeah. Now, let's
so
beginning of the abstract. I'm going to read another one right now, Stackhouse. No, not that one, the other one. I have another passage I'm going to read that I need you to find. Now, go back to the beginning here so I can explain how that relates to here so you can see how that relates to the summary and how it was a bit off-putting. Okay, go back to this in a similar vein thing, Stackhouse.
Okay, sure thing.
So, if you go back to in a similar vein in this paper, I will criticize world system theory by arguing that the labor strategies which were implemented in the Caribbean sugar plantations in the 17th and 18th centuries and coffee plantations in Chiapas in the 19th century developed by the local conditions rather than necessities of the world system. Now, go back to the thing that we just read. That paragraph is an example of the labor conditions that were independent of the core necessities.
why does that suggest they're independent?
Because
they're reacting to the system. They're rebelling against it. Were it not for the system, they would not rebel against it.
I'm trying to again.
You can't explain it because you're just wrong on this point. If you dispute what I'm saying, you're incorrect.
You keep interrupting me. Stackhouse, please go back to the one that we just read.
Yeah.
Explain. So
how is it not? How are they not interact? How are they independent of the system? Because it seems to me like they're not independent of the system. They're reacting to the system.
Being stupid. What's independent of the system is the labor conditions. Look at the part where.
What do you mean by labor? What do you mean by labor conditions?
Stackhouse, please find the part. What was the beginning?
I don't remember.
What do you mean? Well, just answer. What do you mean by labor conditions?
Trying to pull it up. Shut up. 1 second.
Do you know what they mean by labor conditions?
Yes, I do know what they mean.
Just say it.
If you would shut up for a second, I could find it. I lost the section going back.
Say it. Just say it. You don't need to. If you know what it means, you can just talk. Relate it to me.
No, you're going to read along. Okay, found it. Type it by all strict supervisions on them.
Sorry, repeat that?
Again? Yeah.
Type out despite all strict supervisions on them.
Okay.
I'm still missing some stuff.
I'm about to explain it to you. If you'd shut up.
No, I'm still missing. You're cutting out still. Let me mute my mic.
Are you looking at the text? Okay. I call attention to the fact the slaves could defend a small territorial enclave against the Europeans' effort at conquest and enslavement. What's independent is not the slaves, obviously. What's independent is the fact that the conditions of this island made it so they were able to escape and establish this enclave. They had options in order to disrupt the labor conditions. They weren't determined solely by their colonial overlords. This particular passage is evidence of this fact because not only were they able to just disrupt the labor organization by rebelling and leaving, the colonial government wasn't even able to reconquer the Maroon Islands.
Okay, so what's the broader point that this all proves?
So the broader point that this proves is that these labor dynamics are independent of the economic and social forces back in the core countries of this time. Because no matter what the forces are in, say, the United Kingdom or the Netherlands or France at this time, that won't affect the fact that the geography of this island, the way that this island was set up, the conditions of this island, it doesn't affect the physical conditions of this island.
He doesn't. That's not the claim. The claim isn't. The claim isn't that parliamentary meetings in France shape geography.
No,
the claim.
Stop! You're wrong. I'm trying to explain it to you.
No, I got it from the explanation.
I wasn't done explaining.
Okay, go ahead.
Since those differences exist, the labor conditions are also influenced. So
And
because labor,
yes, partly influenced by locality. Yes.
labor patterns are
And I'm
independent.
gonna give you the same fucking spiel I've given you 1,000
No.
times. No. They're partly. They are influenced. They are influenced partly by factors outside of the broader world economic system. But no one disputed that. Again, my entire arc in this conversation has been explaining what Wrong said, and what I've been saying is that Wrong was saying.
No, what you are wrong about is that the independent labor.
Sorry, you're cutting out. Is he cutting out for anyone else?
The independent labor patterns here. I'll go to another one. Let me type this in 1 second. Stackhouse, I'll tell you the phrase. Type in labor. Let me give you a better example since you couldn't understand this one.
Well, I understood it. Just relate it to the broader point. You're not relating it to the broader point.
You didn't.
Just relate it. Yeah, I did. Just relate it to the broader point. What's the broader point? No one has disputed that there are some conditions that are not determined by the broader world market or world economy. No one said otherwise.
Yes, you did. You said that they are partially, but no. The point.
I said partially, exactly.
No,
partially. That means that there's room for locality. It's not completely determined by the world government.
Stop! Shut up! The thing that was partially that you and Wrong kept getting incorrect was you were talking about the economy as a whole. So when I was trying to explain to you by reading this paper that isn't quite clear always, you need to infer what makes the labor conditions independent, you numbskulls would go back and say, oh no, but the economy of Jamaica, the cotton production, that's still partially independent on the core. Yes, what you were failing.
Wait, no, go finish that sentence.
Failing to understand was that the parts I was talking about that were independent were the labor patterns, the fact that the slaves were able to escape on this particular island, but they couldn't in other places. That influences the labor patterns, and that's an independent pattern that's outside of the influence of the core.
No one disputed that.
It's not Synd, because the core will determine relations to that, because the British could send a whole navy and occupy the island, right? There are costs to that, of course, but the fact there is a political entity which is independent, which is rebelled and independent, is still related to the core context.
That has nothing to do with the fact that the specific labor conditions of each place were different. Here's another example. Here, Stackhouse, type in this to the abstract bar. Rather, the historical and unpredictable determined the usage of these types of labor. Do you have it up, Stackhouse? Do I need to repeat it?
Yeah, can you repeat it?
Rather, the historical and unpredictable conditions determined the usage of these types of labor.
Is this on the paper?
That is the paper, yes.
The historical development, he said?
Rather, the historical and unpredictable conditions determined...
the comma. Okay, yeah.
Yes, determines the types of labor.
So what claim did I or Wrong make that disagrees with that?
In this sense, local conditions, mainly labor shortage, were more effective than the interests of the world system to determine the labor strategy.
So what, again, I ask, what did I say or what did Wrong say that contradicted that?
It wasn't that he contradicted that. He repeated himself 4 times, saying the same thing. They were depending on each other. But he thought...
That what was depending on each other?
He did repeat himself 4 times. Yes.
Repeat what? What?
He kept, you and him would keep idiotically agreeing with each other, saying, yes, but this is still partially dependent. This is still related to the international system. This is still related to the international system.
Yeah, it's still
true.
What about.
Wait, but
What-
it is.
No, what you were
Yeah.
talking about was the general economy.
No,
You
I'm still. We can even talk. We can even talk about this.
wait. This is in front of your face for a reason. What you were ignoring and just glossing over was I was talking about these labor conditions, not the general economy. I was
You
trying to
didn't
get.
say that.
Yes, I was. You didn't hear me.
Uh,
Thinking that I was talking about the general economy. You kept trying to relate it back.
you never ever specified that.
Yes, I did.
I
And you
didn't.
didn't understand it. You know why? Because you were too stupid to understand it. You know
Well,
what?
then why did you agree
You
with
weren't reading.
why did you agree with what we were saying then?
Because what you were saying was
Why didn't Synd go? Why didn't Synd say after Zara said that after Zara relayed Wrong's position and said um, what Wrong is saying is not that the world economy wholly determines any particular locality, but that it partly does, right? When I relay that to you and agreed, why didn't you immediately say, "Oh yeah, but I'm specifically talking about this, that, or the other"? Why didn't you say that then? Why did you agree?
well, I actually did several times. That was one of the reasons why I kept trying to get him to say that the workers.
Okay.
Do you remember
Okay. How
what?
even if you are talking about just labor conditions, I don't even see how wrong is wrong. Seems like even in this case, it is still partially determined by the world economy. They're
Yeah,
rebelling after all to a world.
because yes, exactly. The conditions that the labor is
Willow,
following is after the rebellion, which is
Yeah,
related to.
I mean, Will is
Um,
just making the
you're
point.
still higher economy. I'm talking about the labor conditions at the time. I even said it several
yes,
times.
and that's
We're
the point.
saying
The labor
yeah.
conditions at the time are produced out of the political situation
Correct.
just prior, which is the
Yep.
rebellion, which is related and caused by the wider world context.
Exactly. So where are we wrong here? So
You're wrong on the fact that you keep generalizing what I'm telling you to
we're
just
not
look.
generalizing. We're
There's no
talking about
generalization here. This is a specific
Yep.
description of the fact of
yeah.
the relation in question.
This specific instance where they're rebelling and they're able to rebel, but via the island, they're also able to rebel because there's something to rebel against. That was
Yeah.
caused by the world economy.
Yes, but there are still independent factors there that are not influenced by
No one disputed that there are independent factors from relative to the world economy. What we said is simply that the world economy does play a role, not that
Yeah.
it plays the entire
Which-
role, but that it
yeah.
plays part of it.
What you guys didn't understand was that I agree that the world system still has.
No, we understood that you agreed to that after like
No, that was
an hour of back and forth clarification.
Well,
I'm-
I query that actually, Zara, because it seems to me that Synd has the same misunderstanding that the paper does, and that is that it is assuming that the description under world systems theory, the relation to the wider core context, is somehow in contradiction or is not respecting the role that local interactions play, which wouldn't seem to be a aspect of the theory in the theory itself. I could imagine some theorists who have certain interests making such arguments that are reductive to the global context, but not
National.
actually the theory itself.
okay.
I mean, I think
Hello?
charging that against the authors might be correct, but I'm more worrisome of charging Sin with that, just because I heard Sin say, "Oh yeah, what Wrong is saying is obvious." I mean, that was literally verbatim. What
Zara,
he said was obvious.
something that was confusing me, which I probably would have pointed out if I had known that I was being lied to because it didn't make sense to me at the time.
Huh.
He repeated himself.
That's what it was. Not you didn't understand the ideas.
No, wait. he kept saying, he said 2 or 3 times that my claim was that I just discounted the world system. I just opposed the world system. That was
Who said that?
Wrong.
No,
Did.
no, you did oppose the world system because you didn't understand what it was. But once you understood what it was, after I clarified it to you, then you said, "Oh yeah, that's obvious."
No.
Yes,
You didn't even
yes.
remember at the very beginning. Remember when we were talking about the fact that he said at the very beginning, he said, "I don't really think those local conditions were that important." And I said, "No, wait a second. I believe they were." And I tried to convince him. And I read this portion of the paper talking about how the workers did play an active role, not a passive one. And then he went to talking about, well, what about the profits that you thought the owners were making? And I said, well, actually, no. And I went to that example in Chiapas with the workers revolting. My point is that the world system neglected local conditions. And if you go right here, that's exactly what this paper is arguing.
Yeah, but it doesn't though.
It does. I'll pull it up right now.
No. I mean, the world system does not neglect local systems, right?
Yeah, the paper is wrong.
The
It
paper
misunderstands world
No.
systems theory.
Willow, no, you're wrong. Stop.
Well, what paper have you read that makes you think otherwise?
I have the paper right here that's talking about it. Just 1 second.
No. You can't. I'm asking. I'm wondering why what the paper is saying is accurate. You can't cite the paper to me to prove that. I need what is I mean, you could send me a Wikipedia article for fuck's sake that just says the world system only focuses on the world and it doesn't at all look at locality, right? Send me something that says that, because I've been under the impression that is not the case, and I believe it's not the case because it is. I mean, for the reasons that Trader explained, for the reasons that Wrong explained, which is just, it is so fucking silly to say that there are no relations, no causal relations between the world economy and the local economy that are basically inescapable.
Stackhouse, I have another place I want to show you. One paragraph right here. Yes, it's another reason why you should have read it. This is the long one. Like Frank, the main concern. Here's how it was. This is what I was addressing. This is one of the reasons why, how in the tiny paper summary, can you go back to that really quickly, Trader? Just the tiny paper summary. This is where the nuance was lost. Like the paper just said that it neglected the local dynamics. But the abstract also says that, but it's more a matter of degrees. But in this tiny little paper, before I read the study, it wasn't as ambiguous. It's more black and white, as you can see here.
What claim are you making?
Did you hear what I just said?
I want to know. I want to know what claim. I want to know what claim you're making about the world system. What does the world system do? Does it completely neglect locality?
No,
Okay.
No,
what does it do? What does it do?
It doesn't acknowledge that it's developed independently in some instances. Here, I'm going to read the section.
Oh, no,
I'm going to read because you need to understand it.
When you say okay, so wait, I'm gonna clarify exactly what you mean.
Stackhouse.
When you say that it rejects locality in some instances, do you mean that it like literally comments on those specific instances and says there is no locality at play here whatsoever, or do you mean that, or what do you mean? I don't understand, because sorry, go ahead.
This is why you should have read the paper one, because the summary didn't make it this clear.
Yeah.
So you probably
give yourself that advice at the beginning of the conversation too.
Well, I don't know that the paper that the summary
Okay. So what's the claims? Say the claim.
Like Frank, the main concern of Immanuel Wallerstein is the most influential figure of the world system. By the way, the reason why the language is a bit choppy, the person originally probably didn't speak English. But anyway, it's the most influential figure of the world system theory, was the explanation of how the capitalist system penetrated into the periphery and shaped the economic and social relations. For him, the main difference between Marxism and bourgeois ideologies was the former's method of analysis of its case by looking at the social whole, that is, from the perspective of totality and Lukácsian sense. This means that, for Wallerstein, capitalist production should be analyzed by looking at a total world system from its beginning. Capitalist economic relations were dominant in all over the world for the centuries, and it transformed all the other economic systems. In this sense, after emerging in Western Europe, capitalism penetrated into the other parts of the world by trade and transformed the world into its market.
Okay, so what is the claim? Say it in words.
Claims no economic system, even the socialist economies, could avoid from the world system. And this system was the capitalist in its form. That is, main sake of the system was to make profit. Like Frank, Wallerstein divides the world as core, periphery, and semi-periphery countries. He defines a kind of division of labor between these countries. In this division, core countries appropriate the economic surplus produced by the periphery and semi-periphery countries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it can be derived. This last sentence is the most important. In this regard, it can be derived from Wallerstein assumptions that the core imposed capitalist social and economic relations to the periphery, which I said 5 or 10 times. Wrong never even heard me use those terms until like the middle.
So what's the claim? Give me the broad stroke, the most broad strokes claim.
Sentence. In the scenario.
I just wanted to say I'm back. I've emerged with my friend in a new form, but just since we're on my topic,
You're interrupting something.
I mean, I'm not interrupting. I'm seeking to contribute on behalf of. I think I know what Zara was trying to communicate, and the same grounds that you are. Like we're reading, we just read like 2 paragraphs.
I would like to hear what Synd said.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's fair to like argue that like
He's asking what Synd said.
Something.
I want to know.
Go ahead, Synd. You finish.
In this narration, the local conditions as causal factors to explain the historical developments of the periphery were almost invisible.
Sorry, repeat that.
In this narration, the local conditions as causal factors to explain the historical developments of the periphery were almost invisible.
Okay.
Now, go to the next paragraph.
They're not talking about the theory now. Now they're talking about specific communicators of the theory, which is what me and Trader were trying to communicate from the very get-go, which is that the world system theory does integrate locality, but that perhaps world system theorists, via their own biases, might fail to actually account for locality in their own analysis, even if their ideology or system does not necessarily exclude that approach. But this, I don't even think. I certainly left that possibility open. I know Trader did, and I'm unsure, but I never heard Wrong say that no, the theorists in the field have no bias whatsoever on this front. They always manage to integrate locality to the degree that is appropriate. I don't think anyone said that.
Bias is never. If you read this closely, the reason why this author is recounting like the evolution of it is because in addition to this, the author wants to make clear that labor conditions especially are independent. And that's why at the end of the first paragraph of the introduction, it even mentions...
That's just wrong.
It isn't.
Yeah, it is wrong. It is wrong. It is wrong. But it is wrong.
Know more than the authors of this paper?
Yeah. On that specific point,
no,
yes. Me and Willow... Yeah. Willow and I already made the point. which is that it's not completely independent. They're still reacting to a broader system in rebellion. There's no rebellion without that which you rebel against.
Which
And that which you rebel against was the broader system. The broader system caused the rebellion amongst other conditions.
what you guys don't understand is that both of them, the passively succumbing to production forces and actively shaping them, they both are influenced in the same sense that both involve matter. And the one that was not accurately preserved in the summary was the fact that, yes, they often can shape them. So the fact that you guys keep saying, oh, well, no, they still weren't independent, they still had something to rebel against, that's stupid. That's besides the point. That wasn't the author's point.
Not besides the point. That's no. It's not. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if the author It doesn't matter if the author recognizes that point or not. That point stands.
What you don't understand is that the difference between is what a passive one would be, what the author is arguing against, what the summary is arguing.
I would have an issue with that because there is no passivity.
Again, Willow.
I love you, Willow.
Anyway.
Right on my team, it's like, oh my god, it's so good.
So what the tiny little box summary did not make clear at all, which is why it's a bit hard to figure out at first, that that just means that because of the economic conditions, that overrides everything else. That means that would indicate that everybody's on a plantation, everybody is in chattel slavery. That does imply that.
What does?
Because I'm trying to explain to you, however, the active case that the author is trying to advance is that no, there were places where independent labor factors influenced that colonial arrangement. For example, in Jamaica, the fact that they were rebelling, it decreased the profitability of that land. That is an independent factor because it doesn't happen in other areas. It doesn't happen where the forces are the same. There's an independent factor influencing it to affect that outcome. So the fact that...
Who denies that?
You're saying that it didn't matter, that you and Willow were smarter than the author and noticed that it was still connected to it, when I'm saying yes, but you aren't acknowledging that what makes it independent is not that it's isolated from the international forces, it's that it affects the prevailing economic forces in the core.
That's silly. That's silly. Something. No. That's not a. Just because X causes Y does not mean Y doesn't cause X. Y can cause X, and then X can cause Y. It's no more independent because it then causes Y. That's silly.
It's independent because
it's not.
It's independent from the economic force because
It's not.
You weren't listening. I'm trying to explain it to you.
There's nothing to explain. It's
trying to explain it to you.
You can try all you want. You will fail. It's not correct.
You aren't listening.
Because it's wrong. It's incorrect. I've heard you steal 1,000 times.
Sure you. What you're failing to understand is that take the economic forces. The economic forces of the core. That's what the author is trying to say are independent. If you wanted to argue that nothing was independent of that, then that would mean, based off of this system, we're talking about the world system theory, that if the prevailing economic conditions of the core prevail in an area, then they will have the same arrangements. Like everybody will be in chattel slavery. There really isn't an opportunity for the labor to do anything different than the combinations that the core countries demand. So think of it this way. You have two territories, Territory A and Territory B. They're subject to the same economic conditions, and let's assume everything else is the same.
They're not subjected to the same economic conditions, though. It's not
Why
possible.
would you? That's going to be wrong in every case because every condition is different.
Yep. Correct.
I'm talking about. I'm giving you things.
The hypothetical is impossible. Nope. It's not applicable to the actual world.
I'm trying to explain it to you. Listen, you're just
There's
giving...
nothing to explain it's an impossible hypothetical. The moment you stipulate two things, those two things are different. They're not the same.
Okay, let's say
just
that.
logically impossible.
Okay, here's a better way. Say that Lot A has a tax rate of 10% per year, and say Lot B has a tax rate of 10% per year.
Okay.
Let's say this hypothetical. Everything else is equal.
Everything else can't be equal. They're
Stop.
different. They're two different things.
Say that Lot B, say for purposes of experiment, you want to build a house on Lot B.
Okay.
Let's say that house allows somebody to live in it. Because it allows somebody to live in it, they are more productive in tending to Lot B. That effect is independent of the tax rate that applies to both of them. This tax rate in this
Yes.
simplified.
It's partially.
Stop. Listen. Stop trying to respond. Listen. That tax rate is meant to operationalize all of the various economic forces that would be applied equally. And the reason why those are considered broadly the same is because they all stem from the core countries. What makes the effects independent is the characteristics from Lot B that differentiate it from Lot A.
But no, that just because no.
Yes, it is what they mean.
No, just because they have different outcomes does not mean that there's some independence there. The independent, the very factor that you're referring to might be caused by the tax rate.
Yeah, no, I was gonna say it seems to be more like he's trying to say core versus periphery being like a level of influence by which something is like impacting the others. Like
Wrong. No, that it has nothing to. No.
Right. You can't say these two parking lots have the same tax rate and they have everything else equal, and then say they have different outcomes, and then say that there was some independent variable that the one had that the other didn't, because we said other things equal.
I said change. No, Zara, you did not hear the hypothetical. Listen,
you said all things equal.
No.
Yes, you did. You said all things equal.
No, I said then change something about Lot B. Say put a house on Lot B.
Okay.
Why would you put a house on Lot B? No. This is important, right? Because wait. No, this is important to both of our points, because what we are arguing, or they're arguing, and I would agree with, is the idea that because there are different preceding conditions, the new condition of the core countries will have different impacts. That does not mean that the core is not still the inciting cause, right? Different, resources, different cultures, and different countries will react to the imposition of capitalist forces differently, but that does not mean that the imposition of capitalist forces do not change them. Now, if all those countries had the exact same resources, same culture, same politics, right, there would be no reason for them to change, right? Our point is that even if there are, compounding factors, right, it does not mean that capitalism does not have this overriding or very predominant change to all of these systems, right? So if a country rebels against its oppressors, or if it gets pushed into deeper poverty to the extent that it, cannot rebel, right? In both circumstances, these are outcomes that could be caused by the capitalist force, but it does not mean that the other causes that are present were overriding.
Yeah, but you're jumping the gun a little bit. I mean, we still have prior points to go over, which is that Synd wants to say, Synd wants to just ignore the fact that what differentiates A and B might itself be caused by the core. He's not even.
There's also a slippery thing going on with the relation involved, because the hypothetical involves a tax rate. What's the tax rate causal of? Well, in the sense of what the tax does, it means people get taxed, right? And in both situations, the whoever is paying the tax, whether it's the productive worker in House B or whether they're just a capital owned by somebody else who is being taxed, in both cases, the tax rate is charged in either case upon the taxpayer, and such the core is affecting the situation.
Okay.
Right.
Here's another thing that tries to say. The way
Are you gonna concede you're wrong on that, or?
No, I'm not wrong. You guys are being. That's not how the author even uses the term independent. The author is saying that
That
due to
doesn't
different
much.
conditions in there, that the core forces, their core economic forces,
But they're criticizing the world system, right? So the real question is, what does the world system mean by the word independent? Because if the world system means something how like we're using the word independent, then this critique, quote unquote, is not really a critique.
I was never.
You're gonna have to just accept that one, buddy. That one's a big
No.
true.
No, it isn't.
It is.
What I said was that the world system neglects local dynamics. As in, if you just look at it from the international level, from the world system level, you will not get the fact. You will not see the data that shows you what makes Jamaica.
That has not been shown, Synd, because you haven't demonstrated the world system doesn't look at local conditions.
It says it right here in the paper.
No, yeah, I know the paper says it, but that's the issue because we're saying the paper is wrong. The author has
Yeah,
made a
let's
mistake in
differentiate
that.
We went through it.
The paper is
in-
not wrong.
Okay, the example you gave me, right, was that Jamaica rebelled against the capitalist forces, and that other countries did not have the same example and the same thing, right? But rebelling against a new like imposition of a regime or new like forces is still responding to that. If like the conditions that were present in Jamaica made them more likely to rebel against, you know, an imperialist force, an imperialist economic force, then that maybe they were likely more likely to rebel. But that does not mean that they wouldn't have, that they would have rebelled absent an imperial economic force.
I think the question is different though, because Synd's issue seems not to be the issue Synd would be worried about isn't that if he was putting forth a good argument, isn't that the world system is inaccurate to describe what's going on. It's that the world systems account does not include these various local things, right? So it's like he's imagining it put properly, he would be imagining it as like a hierarchy of different descriptions, that the world system description layer is not functional to describe the local system layer in the similar way to how we couldn't describe our experiences by just describing what brain states were, something like that. And in this in this respect, and this is what I think is wrong, because Synd has not demonstrated that the world systems theory contains that distinction, right? Because all he said that he supposedly got the author who says this is the case, but that's unclear to me because it's not been given that the world systems theory is saying that you can has only got descriptions of what the world system does and can't talk about an instance where a local system is doing something. That's the error.
Well, I mean,
and I would be suspicious that the error could even occur in this sense, because it would seem to me that in being a world system, in accounting for